Hey there, this is Wayne Barnes with Kaplan Bar with another bar exam video for you. Right now we're going to talk about some law and look at how that applies in a classic MBE style question. First, a little bit of law to set the stage. I've told you before, and you know that formation is the most tested area in contracts, and this is a contracts question in the area of formation. If you take a look, there's various ways to terminate an offer. So once an offer is made and it's pending before it gets accepted, lots of different ways that offer can be terminated. There can be death of one of the parties. It can be revoked. It can be rejected. There can be a counteroffer, a supervening illegality, destruction of subject matter bargain. But here, as you see, we're going to focus on another way in a simple lapse of time. So to expand that out a bit, offers don't last forever, right? It's not like diamonds being forever. They have a limited shelf life. They have a lifespan. They will eventually die on their own of old age or otherwise. And so when do offers lapse? When is it just too late to accept an offer? Well, if you take a look, just a bit of a refresher, offers lapse of time. Number one, they lapse after the time stated in the offer, if any. You might remember that offerors are master of the terms of the offer. So if I want to offer to sell you my house and give you until June 22nd, 2024 to think about it, then guess what? The offer will last until then, the time that I state, unless something else happens. But more typically, number two is the rule to think about, and that is if no time is stated, then the offer simply lapses after a reasonable time. Well, then that raises the issue, what is a reasonable time? Well, it depends on the subject matter, the market conditions, the degree of urgency. Offers made by text or overnight mail might need to be accepted sooner than offers made by regular mail, or maybe you're really chill and you send it via your carrier pigeon, right? But the particular rule I want to focus on here is the face-to-face rule, and the courts decided a long time ago that an offer made in a face-to-face conversation, human to human, in each other's presence, that generally lapses at the end of the conversation. The idea is that if the offer is made in a face-to-face conversation, it kind of needs to be resolved by the end of the conversation. Otherwise, it's too late and you need to kind of take it up again. Well, with that in mind, let me show you a frequently tested face-to-face type question. Okay, so let's take a look. We start this question 7. It says we got a lawyer who lived in an exquisite home located in a fashionable neighborhood. Now, just a little aside. You know, the bar exam, the questions, they have to come up with all these fact patterns. You have to feel a little bit sorry for the bar examiners. They got to come up with all these questions. They got to kind of come up with all these different answer choices. Here, sometimes they throw facts that don't really matter. Does it matter that it's a lawyer? Does it matter that he lives in an exquisite home in a fashionable neighborhood? What if he just lived in kind of just, your garden variety neighborhood? That doesn't matter, but it's kind of fun to think about. Let's keep looking and see what happens here. Well, a lawyer lived in a home. Now, he had known a gardener for many years, and one day, the gardener was walking down the street when he ran into the lawyer. And the gardener said to the lawyer, "Hey, I will landscape your garden for $200. Now, as an aside, what is that? That's an offer. No question about it. The gardener has just made an offer to the lawyer. Now, they're face-to-face, right? They're humans talking face-to-face. An offer has just been made. Let's look at what happens next. The lawyer said, well, that seems like a good deal. Well, that's nice. It's not an acceptance yet. We're just still chatting. And it says they're talking for a while, but you know what happens next? The lawyer's brother-in-law shows up and he throws off the whole conversation. They start talking about the stock market. I don't know, this brother-in-law is probably complaining about his losses in the stock market, or maybe he's bragging about his gains. You never know, he may be one of those. By the way, the question, it'll always go a certain way. Someone always comes up, starts talking about something else. It doesn't matter if it's the stock market or your favorite football team or your show or whatever it is. The point is they quit talking about the offer, and you know what happens? Nothing further was said about the landscaping, and then we fast forward to the next day. You know what happened? Lapse probably happened, because remember, face-to-face, it only lasted at the end of that conversation. Now we fast forward to the next day, and then and only then does the lawyer telephone the gardener up and purport to accept. It looks like an acceptance if you're not thinking about face-to-face. I accept your offer, but gardener says, now here's a red herring. All of this, the next day, is a red herring, by the way. It says, Gardner replied, well, I can't do it now because last night I contracted to landscape your neighbor's property. I'm busy now. You had your chance, you blew it, buddy. And so I got this other deal. Notice the call to the question. It says, if the lawyer sues the gardener for breach of contract, who will likely prevail? Well, let's work backwards here. I want to keep you in suspense for a second. D says, Well, let me rethink that. I'm gonna just go ahead and just let the cat out of the bag. The answer here is A, okay? The gardener, because that offer lapsed at the end of the conversation. I think you probably saw where we headed with this. There was a face-to-face offer, an offer made in the context of a face-to-face conversation. Unless something else is said, that offer lapses at the end of the conversation. They started talking about the stock market and nothing else happened. They walked away, that offer died, right? So it lapsed. This was over as soon as they walked away from each other that previous day. All that stuff about the next day and the telephone call and the attempt to accept and, oh, sorry, I did this deal for this other guy, that was all a red herring because the lapse terminated that offer before any of that happened. Now, be careful in the bar exam. Just because you think the right answer is there, the first one in A, you got to look at the other three choices to make sure there's not something else to think about. So let's take a look. B says the gardener wins because his contract with the neighbor effectuated a revocation. Now that's a possibility in a certain other fact pattern because you may recall that indirect revocation happens when someone's made an offer but then they take some action inconsistent or they can't do it anymore and you find out about it. The problem here is, number one, the lapse had already terminated the sucker the day before, and number two, just because that gardener contracted, got busy and contracted to deal with someone else, if that lawyer didn't know about it, he doesn't have ESP, that wouldn't actually effectuate a revocation. So there's really a couple of problems with B, so we want to get rid of it. How about C? The lawyer wins. Some of you might have thought this, the lawyer wins because the acceptance was communicated before the attempted revocation. That next day on the phone call, you might have thought, you know, that the gardener answered his phone, sees on his caller ID, oh no, it's that lawyer, I better say first, hey, can't do it, the deal's off. Instead, the lawyer got the first word in, hey, I accept. And you might think, oh, he accepted before the gardener revoked, and so C might be tempting. But the problem is, again, because you know now that the offer lapsed before this conversation even happened, before this day even came, that C is going to be off the table because lapse is what is determinative here. And then finally, D says the lawyer wins because the revocation was ineffective. And that's kind of the same idea. Hey, I got the word in first, I accepted before you revoked. Well, again, that's all beside the point because that lapse happened before any of this, and so A is our right answer. This is a typical MBE multiple choice question testing lapse of offers, and of course that's within the greater area of formation, which is, by the way, the most tested area of contracts is all of these formation rules, of which lapse of time and termination of offer is one. So that's how you'd want to attack that one. That's a typical question. Go through, mark your facts, look at your college question, deal with your answer choices, apply the correct law, get rid of wrong answer choices, and you're on your way to a correct answer. So this has been another bar exam video from Kaplan Bar Review. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, please stay tuned to this video channel for additional future videos from Kaplan Bar Review.